this AvTims video, we're going to be building the F15 Screaming Eagle. Plans are available on AvTims.com. You're going to need to build the two power pods. We have a separate video on AvTims.com. You will notice the F15 only uses the inside of the power pod. So heat up your glue gun and let's get building. Let's start with the wing. You're going to want to remove some of the paper from the inside. This will save a lot of weight. To create the nice wing camber shape, you take the wing and rub it against the edge of a table. Lay the bottom of the wing flat on a table and slowly push the top side over. Work slowly in the beginning and then a little more aggressively, and eventually it'll fold over nice and flat, making a nice curve. Open up your wing, take out your hot glue gun, lay a nice bead of glue there, hold it down, make sure to hold it firmly until it cools, and you have a nice solid wing. Next, we're going to start on the fuselage. You may want to use a pencil to mark the lower fuselage to the upper fuselage. Use the front of the lower fuselage and the air holes to line them up. During this build, I actually glued my top fuselage upside down. My hinges are now facing the wrong way, but they still work okay. Work your way around the lower fuselage, lifting it and hot gluing it down. You want to make sure that these two parts are securely glued together. Most of the airplane's strength is based on these two parts. Next, we're going to support the battery tray. Use a liberal amount of glue here to make sure that these supports are attached properly. Later, we're going to reinforce them with a popsicle stick. Next, we install the engine top cowls. Use a pencil to trace them, flex them around several times dry fit before you start to glue them. Do one side then the other, use a liberal amount of glue. Make sure to leave the very front of this open so that you can slide your turtle deck underneath of them. Next is the air intake section. We're going to be using the old Flight Test B-style fold. Lay a bead of hot glue in the channel and hold it vertically until it cools. It's best to work on a flat table for this. Work your way towards the tail. I put a nice bead of glue on the inside of this part. You want this to be nice and strong. Use the paper tabs to seal the back end closed. Use the same B-style fold for up front. Now we're going to work with our wings. You want to dry fit these at first. You might need to trim a little here and there, but they should fit nice and smoothly. You're going to slice a paint stick in half the long legs. Lay the paint stick across the top half of the fuselage and tuck one wing in at a time. You may need to trim your paint stick a little bit shorter. The key to this is dry fitting. You can do it several times, and in fact, your paint stick is going to remain dry fit and never be glued in. Once you're happy with your layout, you can glue the top and bottom foam. Now dry fit the air intake to the bottom of the fuselage. Work your way back to front, gluing the paper tab down to the fuselage. Use a pair of scissors and cut a slice in the paper tab so that way your paper tab will fold nicely around this part. The air intake on the F15 Eagle is really a special part. It makes the airplane really look scale. Our canopy / hatch really sets this model apart from others. Make sure to remove the paper from the inside of the foam. The more you work this foam, the easier this part will be to make. Start slowly but aggressively curve this piece of foam until it curls all the way around in a complete circle. You can use the edge of a table, or there's a push down and curl method that we use in other videos. Be sure to dry fit this very carefully before you glue. When ready, glue and hold until cool. Then flip the part over, glue the paper tab down, and your canopy is starting to take shape. Dry fitting these parts is really key. Roll the canopy several times before you attempt to glue it. Now that's a good looking part. It's time to slide it on and see how it fits. We're going to take a break from foam and move on to some poster board. Poster board is very similar to foam. If you use a sharp pencil, you can make indentations and see the lines on the poster board. I like to use the edge of a table to bend and roll as necessary to make the part look as realistic as I can. Some people like to use Scotch tape instead of hot glue to make these canopies. Hot glue dries very quickly. Make sure you dry fit these pieces several times before attempting to glue. I use a combination of Scotch tape and then seal it with hot glue. To mount the nose cone, make sure to pinch the foam all the way around the edges, crushing it slightly. This angles it and makes it easier to slide the nose cone on. To mount the windshield, I usually use a little piece of Scotch tape, trace it with a pencil, and then go for it with hot glue. To mount the turtle deck, use a piece of Scotch tape across the front, curve it over the spar, and tuck it under the top cowls. If you accidentally glued the top cowls down, you'll need to cut the poster board to fit around them. Glue in the rudders with hot glue, lay a nice bead in, and wiggle them back and forth. Take a moment to look at what you've created. It's quite an amazing looking jet at this point. Alright, let's get some motor in there. You may have to do a little trimming of the foam here, and now's a good time to cut out the support pieces of foam underneath the top engine cowls. You're also ready to glue in the engine support blocks to the insides of both rudders. Once you're ready, poke a barbecue skewer through one rudder, through both engines, and out the other rudder. Reinforce the barbecue skewer with a little square of poster board. You only need one skewer for this model. Up front, you're going to want to support the battery tray with a popsicle stick on the inside of the foam. Now we're ready to start installing the electronics. Since you're running this setup with two speed controllers on one battery, you don't want the speed controllers to compete. So when you use the Y harness, you need to cut one of the hot wires. Just take a little piece of it out and cover it up with electrical tape. I use hot glue to connect two servos together. Mark the location on the fuselage, cut out the hole, and hot glue to secure the servos in place. Most of the time I like to make my own parts, but for control horns I just buy them 10 at a time. They're pretty inexpensive. I also love these control stoppers. There's lots of ways to do this, but this is my favorite. You can do the same thing with the elevators. You're going to need to make a control support for the elevator piano wire. Start with a square of poster board, fold it in half, open it up, put a dot of hot glue in there. Wrap it around the control rod and close it on the hot glue. Now put a dab of hot glue on that poster board and secure it to the fuselage. This makes a nice guide for the control wire. The aileron servos are going to be in the wing just behind the spar. If you hold the wing up to the light, you'll be able to see the wooden spar. You can use piano wire or barbecue skewer to feed the servo wire through the wing and out the other side. Cut a little hole in the turtle deck right behind the spar for the servo lead to go back into the air intake. Do the same process on the other side. Attach servo extensions and feed them down through the hole. Now you can securely tape down your turtle deck. Now you're ready to connect your receiver. If you haven't centered your servos, remove your control heads. It's important to center up your aileron servos before you glue them in. It's a little trickier to get them out. There's several different ways to do this, but I like to use the end stoppers because it's very easy to adjust your ailerons. This is the first time I've ever tried this, but I did a little mixing. When I go elevator up, I get an aileron to go up as well. The nice thing about using two servos for your elevators is you can make your elevators work with your ailerons. Now we need to do some tidying up. I like to use twist ties or zip ties. Fit your battery. Use a rubber band to hold your battery in place and make sure that your canopy hatch can slide on properly. It helps to place one hand in the back by the motors to push this in properly. To remove, you put your thumb here and pull the canopy. It comes off easier. Now we're ready for a little weight and balance. Your center of gravity is about 1 inch back from the wing attach point to the fuselage. If you're not fighting a forward CG problem, use a paint stick and hot glue to reinforce the battery tray. A quick word on cheater holes. If your air intake is clogged up with wires, you might want to slice these two little holes in the back to give the engines extra airflow. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Check AvTims.com for coloring instructions and other build videos.